Hello, everybody. So, this is a headline from the St. Catharines Standard, Ontario government to hold midnight sitting. On Saturday evening, the Lieutenant Governor granted the government's request to reconvene the House at 12:01 a.m. Monday to continue to expedite passage of this bill. So on Saturday, they got permission, so that allowed them to sit today at 12:01 a.m. So that's Monday morning, right? And we'll find out why. Here's a Globe and Mail article. Quote, "We will never, ever back down. Ontario's Ford declares at midnight session to slash Toronto City Council." Hundreds of spectators and protesters chanted and pounded on the walls of the Ontario Legislature Monday as MPPs debated a hotly contested bill to slash the size of Toronto City Council. Security and police blockaded the door at the front of the building as the protesters demanded access. They don't mention in the article that the protesters had access and they were disrespectful in the House, in the gallery, and they were removed because they were disrespectful. They don't mention that in the article. And the funny thing about this article is it becomes more about the protesters than about the bill being passed. Okay, and that's how they're going to do this. They're going to talk about the protesters. We're covering it. What do you mean? We told you everything that you need to know. Bullshit. But the idea is to cover the opposition as if they're correct and make the story more about the protesters than about the actual what happened. Okay, so anyway, that's back to me, or back to the article. The protests could be heard through the walls for hours after the midnight session began, including shouts of "Whose house? Our house," which is hilarious because it's clearly not their house. They're outside. Stupid. Okay, back to the article. By around 4 a.m. Eastern Time, new Democrat Party leader Andrew Horwath had left the room and Premier Doug Ford was no longer in his seat. Mr. Ford later returned to his seat speaking to the section just after 6 a.m. Quote, "We will never ever back down," Mr. Ford said. "Last week I told the people of Ontario that the government will do whatever it takes to get this legislation passed as quickly as possible." Okay, the government needed, the reason they did the 12:01, like the overnight session, is, here it is from the article, quote, "The government needed 6.5 hours of debate on Bill 31 to hold a vote on the second reading, a point they've expected to hit by early Monday. From there, their plan is to invoke a timeline allocation," said Government House Leader Todd Smith, "and then hold a vote Thursday to pass the bill by the end of the day." So they voted, the first reading was held and voted on, and now this is the second reading, so they have to have 6 hours of debate, and without the time sitting, I guess Ms. Horwath, the leader of the opposition, was planning on procedural delay tactics, right? So they wouldn't have enough time to debate it, and so they couldn't get it through, and then the October 22nd vote either gets pushed down or done with 47 or whatever. It won't be because Doug Ford can just say, okay, we're going to do it in January. Like, no problem. We'll reschedule the vote. And that's me talking off the top of my head. That is not, I haven't read that somewhere or anything to that effect, but I'm saying I think that Doug Ford is willing to do what it takes to get his way in this position. He's been very clear about that. Okay, back to the article. The unconventional nighttime sitting has been called under severe time crunch, with Toronto City Council city clerk warning that she's reaching a tipping point over whether she can properly administer the municipal vote on October 22nd. In response, Conservative members began to, okay, sorry, and there's some other stuff here. Link is in the description if you want to see it. Please do. But the Globe and Mail is dicey at best. So the whole thing. Oh, right. I said it was going to become about the protesters. So it does become about the protesters. They want to stop the. So when the protesters hit a particularly audible point, back to the article, Kitchener Centre MPP Laura May asked for a pause inside the legislature for like 2 seconds just to listen to them. In response, the Conservative members began to clap. At one point, when Ms. Horwath called the PCA members seals, the Tories called a point of order and argued that the NDP's leader's words were insulting, which is true. Again, you have decorum in the House. You can't call people names. So you can clap, but you're not allowed to call people names. And as well, some protests in the dark were quieter than others. So they're trying to make this about the protesters and not about what's happening with the legislature and the law. So here's a picture out from Twitter. Thank you, Diane Weeks, for being there, of the protesters literally having temper tantrums because of democracy happening inside Queen's Park. We're so sad. You know what the other part of this is? I wonder how much they're being paid. This guy's on his phone. He's not really engaged. You'll see video of this in a minute. So here's Dougie, and I've got timestamps of the whole. So there's 25 minutes. I couldn't find the whole sitting. Usually they have it on the Parliamentary website, but I couldn't find it. So I'm going with this, and it's pretty complete. So we'll look at it for what it is, and I'll get to the clips. Hold on. Okay, we're going to jump through and look at the most important stuff that I think. And this, sorry about this. This player isn't YouTube or anything like that. I think it's the CP24 player. So it's kind of choppy and kind of strange. So sorry if it isn't great to watch. I'll do my best.
Just like so many other people out there, the shift workers and the small business owners, folks who have worked long hours, and people who don't get to work the 9 to 5 shift, that have to work the afternoon shift or the midnight shift. We came into the legislature this weekend with a big goal, to cut through the political games and the delay tactics from the NDP.
All right, and I just explained how he was going to do that. We're going to do our best to go through this quickly. This is talking about real priorities of Ontario businesses, and I agree with that.
In political games and move forward on the real priorities of Toronto families and businesses, building housing, building transit, and building infrastructure. We're going to fix the current dysfunction and the political gridlock that has crippled Toronto City Hall for decades. Our plan would replace the broken City Hall, one where meetings can last for days and days and nothing gets done, where housing and transit and infrastructure can't get built, a system that isn't working. With a more efficient council, a streamlined government can take action to get work on these issues that really matter to the people. We're focusing on issues that people face every day. When it takes them an hour and a half to get downtown to work, an hour and a half back, that's costing our economy billions and billions of dollars. Our plan would align Toronto's ward boundaries with what we see federally and provincially. As you've heard my colleagues say, there's 25 member of Parliament MPs, 25 MPPs. Why not 25 councillors? Tell you, when I go to events, like a lot of you go to, and I go to the Tim Hortons, or if I go to a sandwich shop, I can tell you what I hear, my friends. I hear everyone say, keep going, don't give up. People telling me that they're tired of hearing all the grandstanding and all the talk at the city council level. They're tired of seeing nothing get done. That people cannot afford to wait 4 more years to finally get things done. That is why we are doing everything possible to get this bill passed this week. Today, we're all a little bit tired, but we're stronger than ever. No matter how many games the opposition plays, we will follow through on our commitments to the people. You have my word. My friends, during the election, I said we have an all-star team, and we have an all-star team right here. But you know who's even a better all-star team than at Queen's Park? Are the people outside Queen's Park. The people that are driving to work right now, that are going to be working in the back of the factories, that are working in the restaurants, that are barely putting food on their table because their hydro rates are too high, the gas prices are too high, their personal income tax is too high. I can assure those people, you aren't working for nothing because help is here. Help is here for the people.
And here we see the protesters outside. And I thought this was kind of funny. Like, this is, so obviously this is CP24s, but I thought the cut screen was kind of funny. Like, okay, these guys they'll give them a bit more than half. Yeah. No, cut the premier down. Yeah, there. What? Like, this is pretty funny. So, and these guys are just ridiculous this whole time. They're banging the wall. But there's like, what, half a dozen of them? So how many of these people are being paid to be here? That's my question. Like, really? How many people are collecting cash after this? Because yeah, most people don't have time to pull this. Most people are either at home asleep in bed or actually at their job. So, you know, crazy. All right, and we'll just let him finish.
And my friends out in Scarborough, and I have a lot of friends out in Scarborough, I can assure you we will have the 3-stop subway for my friends in Scarborough. The Scarborough subway has been voted on 8 times. Back and forth, defer, defer, defer. That's what happens at City Hall. I can assure you those days are done. We will be blazing a new trail of opportunity and growth the likes this province has never seen before. We will make sure that we build proper transit, not only for Toronto and the GTA, but the folks out in Niagara, people out in Hamilton, right across this great province. They will finally be able to get from point A to point B in a rapid fashion. We will make sure that we end, as we always said during the campaign, hallway healthcare. The days of 4- and 5-hour waits are going to be done. The days of being gouged by the government, they're done, because we believe in empowering the people, not empowering the government. We will make sure we put more money in your pocket instead of the government's pocket. I thank you, and again, a new day has dawned in Ontario.
Okay, and then the speaker stands up and asks for questions and comments about the bill, and I'll show you a couple of them because they're worthwhile. But man, those outside people are just ridiculous, just ridiculous. Okay, so we're gonna watch this initial question because I think it's very funny that they just admit that they have nothing. So.
Thank you. Questions and comments? I recognize the member for Timmins.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and that was an interesting discussion we just heard. I just have to say, first of all, you know, the Premier and others through the evening say we're here for the people. How can you be here for the people when the people outside are banging to get into this building and not able to get into the building as a result of your action? So you can't make that argument with a certain face. The other part is, everybody understands that the Ontario Legislature has certain powers. Nobody's disputing that. But we are, what you're failing, boy, you guys are just something else over there. But anyways, my point.
And they shout him down for a minute, and then he tries again, and he tries again. And I'm going to go to 1635 because he actually gets it out at that point in time. Hold on. Sorry, 1438. This is where he actually says his entire question.
And I need to be able to hear the speaker. Please continue.
So, Madam Speaker, the point I'm making is this. The legislature has the authority to pass laws. Nobody disputes that. But the courts have a responsibility to interpret the law if somebody says it's been broken. In this particular case, the judges said, hey, that what you've done by changing the rules in the middle of an election is unconstitutional. So therefore, you're putting this legislature in a situation by using the notwithstanding clause in a preemptive way that is going to cause real problems into the future. And if you don't understand what you're doing here when it comes to the danger of your actions, I think this province is in deep trouble.
Sir, okay, and I'm going to respond to this. The PC government does respond to this, but it's really hard to understand. Like, the way question period's asked, the way they respond to it is later on. But essentially, they say, this is constitutional. The action of using Section 33 is constitutional. The action of Doug Ford normalizing the amount of Toronto City Council seats is constitutional and within the law and within the purview and power of the Premier. And the use of Section 33 is to stop activist judges who misinterpret the law purposely to push their agenda forward. That's exactly what is happening here. And if you don't see that, sir, you should potentially not be in government. Like, that's very, very, very not clear, but man, it doesn't take much reading to see what's happening here. And again, these protesters are part of what's happening here. Andrea Horvath's atrocious behavior in the House is part of what's happening here. They're doing this on purpose to attempt to delegitimize, and they're reporting it in a slanted way, again, in an attempt to delegitimize, but this is well within the law. And you guys pretending that it's not is just silly. We see through you. Okay, here's the next question.
Further questions and comments? I recognize the member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we spent all night here debating about people's civil liberties and the rule of law and the people's right to a fair and free election. And unfortunately, the Premier and his Conservatives are attempting to divide our great city. And I feel that this is damaging. I feel that it is wrong. And what I'm hearing from the people of Scarborough is that their trust has been broken. The Conservatives are attempting to divide our city. And maybe it is for settling scores or personal vendettas, but the fact of the matter is that it is impacting the people of this city and the province. And we will not be silent about this. It must be stated, once again, that the Premier did not campaign on this. There was no mention of this in the election. There was no mention of this in the throne speech. There simply was an action taken that was ruled unconstitutional by the courts.
By an activist judge. And let's go over to the Ontario PC Party Plan for the People. Plan for the People, right? You guys remember that? Oh, hey, right here. quote, "We're going to replace Kathleen Wynne and the Liberals with a practical, affordable, and responsible government that trusts and respects you." Now, that doesn't say we are going to limit the size of Toronto City Council, but it says that we are going to implement a practical, affordable, and responsible government. I don't know. That sounds like campaigning on it to me. No? If your leader's plan was to open Ontario as a sanctuary province and be a government for anybody who gets here, and his plan was to replace that plan with a practical, affordable, and responsible government that trusts and respects you, I'd say that's campaigning on it, wouldn't you? Here's the last clip I'm going to leave you with. This is, and I can't remember her name right now, and I'm not going to watch it again to get her name, but she's a PC MP, so she's a progressive conservative member of the House, and she talked specifically to the members of the public being in the gallery and then being removed because they were disrespectful, and that didn't make it into the article, but all of the slings and arrows that the NDP threw at Mr. Ford, they make it into the article. So have a listen.
The member from Timmins, I'd first like to say that the people outside aren't locked up. They were here and they were totally disrespectful in this House, and they're out for that reason. The Premier, it is a privilege and an honour to be part of your team. You give this province hope again, and so that we will be a have province again. And as your leadership, and with the good people of Ontario, we're going to make this province exactly what it deserves to be. One thing I'll say is, when we work alone, we make progress. When we work together, we make history, and we're darn tootin' going to make history here today. The member from Bruce Grey Owen Sound, your speech was passionate. It was an honour to sit here with you today and tonight, and with all my caucus members here. And as you quoted and said, we'll make things better for the people of Ontario, and thank you so much for what you said. The government House leader said, "This is a divisive issue. Everyone, including the media, was shocked the judge made this decision. We maintain we are in our rights, so we needed to appeal. We also needed to make sure that the election was in place for October 22nd. The Speaker ruled the difference between two bills is this one invokes Section 33. So that is what the debate is about that we are having, and we're having an orderly election so that we can have an orderly election on October 22nd. We have to guard the rights of this legislature. We can't let the courts diminish the rights we have inherited 800 years of parliamentary democracy, where we separate the Crown and the Legislature, and the Legislature is supreme. We don't have a luxury of time. We want to make sure this gets..."
Thank you.
So what she's saying there is, this was legal. The legislature reigns supreme. The courts do not decide or make laws. The people do through the legislature, and the legislature is supreme, not the courts, period. And that is so important. That should be the headline. That's it. Hey, Toronto, this is legal. Simple as that. Deal with it. Sorry about your luck. And not even sorry about your luck. I'm glad that you will have an efficient council to efficiently manage your city. Because, man, it's really, really violent lately, guys. Have you noticed? So these protesters here remind me of these protesters here. And I was like, man, you remember that? Let's go scream at the sky. Because Donald Trump. Look, we're making noise. Yeah, real effective, guys. No, I just can't listen to it anymore. Babies. Adult children who don't understand either what the system is, how it works, or their role in it. But man, take some responsibility. Start watching some Jordan Peterson YouTube videos, guys. Yeah, and maybe get a job that doesn't require you to behave like a child on news. And to Doug Ford and your PCs and MPs, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for standing up for parliamentary democracy. Thank you for standing up for the supremacy of the legislature. Thank you for taking the slings and arrows of the press. The press party is not your friend. They want you to be on these children's side. But these guys haven't grown up yet. We got a country. We got a province to run. Thanks for watching. MaximeBernier.com. Check out Faith Goldie for Mayor of Toronto if you're interested. Thanks.